When I listen to Audible, I'm not on mile 2 of my early morning run. I'm out searching for clues in the abandoned toy factory near the cemetery. As I make my way down to the basement, I can't help but feel like I'm being followed. Did that doll just move?
Who's there? They're getting closer!
I should really get a treadmill.
Go to audible.com/start trial and your first download is free. Audible. Stories that surround you.
Blog Talk Radio.
Are you looking for an all-natural solution to skincare? Try Simply Cedar all-natural skincare products. Coconut oil locks in moisture with nature's finest organic solution. Rich with vitamin E and rejuvenating proteins, it can help with enhancing skin nourishment for wrinkles, skin damage, tissue repair, and more. Simply Cedar skincare line includes Simply Cedar coconut oil, Simply Cedar bath salts, and Simply Cedar bath gel. Get healthier-looking skin today. Order all 3 today for $40 at www.simplycedar.com. And I know for a fact that it helps with diabetic edema. My husband has edema on both of his legs. He is insulin dependent, and he also has very dry skin on his feet and toes, and it has made a world of difference. You definitely want to go to www.simplycedar.com and order her products today. They do not have any unnatural ingredients or any preservatives. It is all simply coconut oil with maybe a little jasmine. Order it today. Are you looking for a website creator that will make your website stand out above the herd? Are you looking for someone that knows your needs and can create a website that is not only eye-catching, but one that will stay with the customer as they scroll through the net? If so, contact Wellhaven and Associates. Lourdes Wellhaven has the magic touch when it comes to websites. You give her an idea and let her run with it, and she will create something beautiful. If you don't believe me, check out author Yvonne Mason at .com and see what she has done for me. And here's the great thing. If you contact her and give her my name, she'll give you $100 off. So don't wait. Don't delay. Call today or go online and look up Wellhaven and Associates and send her an email and tell her what you need. She will get back with you promptly.
The year, 1888. The place, London's East End. Dead and mutilated bodies are popping up all over, from Stamford to Whitechapel. Jack the Ripper is leaving his mark, and the city's on edge. Yvonne Mason is back with a tale of murder and millinery. The Rhodes Hat Factory is booming while the body count rises. Why now? How are these hats connected? Has the Hatter gone mad? Mad Hatter from Yvonne Mason. Available now on Amazon.com.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, this is Off the Chain. I am your host, Yvonne Mason. And those of you that have been with me since the inception of this show, you know when I say we're off the chain that we are indeed off the chain. Tonight is our 33rd show. I am so excited because little did I know when I started this show back in July that I would have such a diverse group of guests and people willing to come and talk about their platform, talk about their dream, talk about their passion, talk about their craft, and sometimes even disagree with me, which I love. Tonight's guest is author David Hoof, and an hour, even 2 hours, could not possibly scratch the surface of this wonderful, wonderful author. For instance, David was born December the 2nd, 1945 in Washington, D.C. He traveled with a Navy family, and he's lived in Washington, Boston, San Francisco, Hawaii, and London, England, before entering Deerfield Academy in Massachusetts as a sophomore. While there, he earned All-American honors in swimming for 3 straight years. He captained his senior year. From Deerfield, he went on to Cornell University as a Mening National Scholar. He was a member of the Phi Kappa Psi fraternity and majored in chemistry. From Cornell, David went on to graduate in chemistry at Purdue, earning his Ph.D., and after Purdue, he took a National Science Foundation postdoctoral fellowship at Georgetown University. Subsequent to this, he taught briefly at Montgomery College before entering the United States Department of Energy, where he dealt with the reprocessing of nuclear reactor fuel. Ladies and gentlemen, this man is absolutely amazing. So I'm not going to waste any more time. I'm going to introduce you. Welcome, David.
Thank you very much, Yvonne. I'm so pleased to be here.
I am tickled to death you're here. When I started reading all the things you've done in your life, I said, I got to have this man on my show without any further ado. We got to get this man. Tell me your history.
Many others have said that, Yvonne.
Gotta get him. That's good. I like that. Tell me your history, because just your schooling alone makes me salivate.
Well, I've been extremely fortunate. Being in a military family, I had to make my own way in academia, and I was extremely lucky to have found a talent in swimming, which was appreciated and cherished and developed by Deerfield Academy especially, where Larry Boyle was my coach. Before him, Joe Rogers at Congressional Country Club in Washington, D.C. These men were phenomenal coaches and mentors. I brought the talent, and they developed it. I was lucky enough that sophomore year to set the fastest time in the world with 3 other teammates in the 200-yard freestyle relay, and that included teams in Palo Alto High School with Steve Clark and Don Scholander, who would be Olympian gold medalists. I was lucky enough during my swimming career to beat 3 eventual Olympic gold medalists, Carl Roby, Steve Eric, and Don Scholander in age group competitions and meets, and enjoyed the sport, and was good enough with it to write my ticket all the way through undergraduate college, and after that it was just a matter of becoming an academic and moving into chemistry.
What made you move into chemistry?
I guess it was the signals had been sent by coursework that this was what I was good at the time. I enjoyed it, and I treasured the education that I had all the way through graduate school and into graduate work and into the workplace as well. It's a fascinating way of learning to look at the world and to demand things of your argument and position where the evidence that you used supported a position which seemed to be the best explanation. A good advocate for a position has to take the position, justify it with the evidence, multiple evidence, then take on the adversaries, people who feel otherwise if they're there, and address those objections in terms that your solution or your approach is more elegant or more direct than theirs is. And as a way of thinking, it helps one overstate things, impulses we have that might otherwise not bear up under examination.
Interesting, because if I'm understanding you correctly, anything that we do in our life depends on chemistry, whether it's emotional, physical, spiritual, mental. It depends on chemistry. Is that a correct statement?
It is certainly a correct statement in terms of the biological basis for who we are. And if you look at somebody like Craig Ventnor, he has taken the idea of abiogenesis, he and a number of other people, and have been able to create synthetic forms of life in the laboratory and to develop them. Admittedly, they're very simple forms of life, but they are self-replicating. And the reason they took their synthetic approach was starting from basic, commonly occurring amino acids that were known to exist, and to putting them together, or allowing them, I should say, to combine in ways where their combination was not prompted. It simply was a function of temperature and the chemical potential of its what we call functional groups, amino groups, carboxylic acid groups, cyano groups, whatever these had. In fact, in the case of thymine, if we had missed one amino acid entirely in putting ourselves together, we wouldn't have any problem with heavy metal poisoning, because it is the sulfur atom in the thymine which bonds so powerfully to lead and mercury and a number of elements in that portion of the periodic table. So if we had thrown thymine out and taken another amino acid, we wouldn't have any problem with heavy metal poisoning.
You just get more and more interesting, David.
And it's not as if other evolved creatures have needed to go that way, particularly as femophiles. There are potentials to do things. It's just those were the number of ingredients. That was the way the dice turned up when it came time to combine amino acids and go in the direction that most life has gone on this planet.
How do you top that? How in the world do you top? Because in any discussion that you get into with anyone on any educational level, you can debate your stance by basic chemistry, and more times than not win via basic chemistry.
I think that's true. Not even the chemists agree on everything. I've been in seminars where two Nobel Prize winners, one was presenting and the other was in the audience of the host university, and they were so devoted to their positions. The positions were very different, but the evidence didn't exist to distinguish the merits of one above the other. It was head-to-head. It was like two racehorses going across the finish line, and you couldn't make a call. And because of their personal devotion to their particular interpretations, these were men who were up, and grown men who were screaming at one another during the seminar because they were so passionately devoted. And yet, once the discussion was over, which was about the truth, this is why they were so adamant. Everyone was after the truth. When the evidence finally comes in, whatever the better evidence is in support of a theory, it must rule. Any other theories that contradict it have to be thrown out. It's the world that speaks to science about what it is. It's not the scientists to determine what the world ought to look like. If that's clear, this is a way of looking at it.
That's very clear, because the same thing in the criminal justice sphere. It is the totality of the evidence that is presented, not what you want the totality of the evidence to say. It is what is there.
Yeah. We've just been through here in D.C. Disruption on the Chandra Levy case again, and this was a matter of where the evidence that convicted this man, irrespective of what his nature was or what the feeling of the police department was, came by way of a jailhouse snitch. It's really not the most reliable source, and the emotional need for a verdict in this case was so high that the jury read the suggestibility of the prosecution when the prosecution had in fact withheld evidence from the defense. And that's the kind of justice that I don't like. And my friend, a lawyer, Steve Clark, who's also an author in Oklahoma City, had said very often it's the case that a police department will go on and there isn't really any investigation. They find somebody they think is good for it, and then they gin up a case. And
yep,
that's what you
they try to make the evidence. They try to make the evidence fit the suspect instead of letting
following the evidence. Yeah.
Right. Instead of following the evidence, they've already determined he's guilty, so they're gonna make that evidence fit him, and that is sad, because what that does is that gives our criminal justice system such a black eye.
Yeah.
And you do have, sadly enough, there are innocent people in prison because instead of following the evidence, they determine Joe Blow's guilty, and I'm going to make the evidence fit him.
Yeah. Well, The other thing is what might be called jurisprudential poverty, and the people who are pooled on the jury are often not the ones who are best able to make a decision. I remember sitting on a jury where a piece of evidence was produced to me. It was supposed to be an Uzi thrown from a truck at 35 miles an hour while the felons were escaping, and the testimony said it left the truck, bumped a couple of times, hit a curve, popped over, and slid, and here is the gun. They presented it to me. They presented it to us, the jury, and when we pulled, I said that wasn't the gun. Because as a material scientist, I can tell you, anybody who sees metals that are thrown will see scratch marks on the thing, and they'll see deformation from an impact. There was none on this gun.
Absolutely. You'll see scratch marks. You'll see indentations. You'll see different...
Some form of contact, yeah.
Right, because you can't throw something. You can't throw something going from a moving object at that force and not have evidence that it was thrown. And that, see, I'm telling you, 1 hour, good thing you're coming back in February, my friend. I am very curious. What is a Ming National Scholar?
Oh, Mining National Scholar is the mining family is deeply allied with Cornell, and they offer to people of significant academic accomplishment the distinction of having a fellowship and having basically half of your cost covered by this scholarship and going to Cornell. It was meaningful to me because it was an enabling factor. My father couldn't afford that. In fact, I got into Yale and Harvard, and he looked at their offer for aid and decided he couldn't do it, and therefore it's one of those situations where I had to pick myself up by my own bootstraps and avail myself of an opportunity that came, and I'm grateful that they found me worthy and found my contribution to the academic community and to the athletic program worthwhile.
And in getting that led you to working for the Department of Energy.
That was at the end of the track. I didn't know it at the time, but that's right. The Department of Energy is... Yeah, go ahead.
And I'm sure there's some things that you can't discuss, but the things that you can talk about in your journey with the Department of Energy, do you mind? Because I know that this audience is already enraptured and they want to know more about the wonderful David Hoof, as do I.
Well, I was quite surprised, in fact, at our legislative process because I knew enough about classified documentation. I learned from DOE working in nonproliferation exactly what a nation had to have a viable national scale nuclear weapon program. And so would many of your listeners if they just looked around the country. You see at Savannah River, you have a reprocessing plant. At Hanford, you have reprocessing plants. At Oak Ridge, you have gaseous diffusion plants. At Los Alamos, you have basic research and materials research. At Chicago, and a supporting industry, everything from General Electric to Rockwell, Westinghouse, were involved in this. In our national program, which is the blueprint for a viable national nuclear program, we have a production reactor, the likes of which you see in aerial photography in North Korea, and that's why we knew North Korea had a program. You have to have a big production reactor that makes uranium and plutonium. You then have to have a reprocessing program which separates the fissile products and the waste from the fissile material. You have to have a transportation program connecting all these hubs. You have to have a weapons fabrication facility separate from this. You have to then have an assembly plant for putting together missiles with the warheads, and then you have to have the entire weaponry deployed to various sites. We looked at the claim where George W. Bush was not qualified to make this decision. Says we know there are nuclear weapons in Iraq. I looked at the data, including the overfly data, including certain things to which I had access through other contacts, including intelligence on the acquisition of nuclear materials from A.Q. Caine, who is the provider of proliferation materials for the world, a commercial prop in Pakistan. and the absence of special nuclear materials that are required for control rods in reactors, and came up with a conclusion spot on that said they don't have a national nuclear program. They don't have nearly that. We'd had in Baghdad, and you remember from Gulf War I, an overfly, no-fly zone, including that of where the nuclear program was supposed to be conducted. No evidence, no surveillance photos at all, either from the overfly or from satellites. The conclusion is they didn't do anything. They can't have a program. And a fraternity brother of mine from Cornell was Steve Hadley, who was Bush's national security advisor. I said, Steve, you know as well as I do, that there aren't any weapons there. If you looked in there, and if you looked at the data, there is no evidence for that, and certainly not on the scale that you need for a national program. In addition to that, Yvonne, probably the worst thing that a nation can have is one nuclear weapon. And the reason for that, if that country has one nuclear weapon, they are toast. That's all they have. True. And if they don't have a delivery vehicle that has a credible range, they are also toast. The calling card for a nuclear proliferation program is for the nation to beat its chest, and every nation that's developed a weapons program, and has now Pakistan, India, Israel, has had a nuclear weapons test. This is your calling card to the world. Now, Iraq didn't have one. You say, why would they need one if they were being really clandestine? They would need one because they want to be damn sure they don't have a dud. And the only way they can do that is to test their weapon. So there was nothing in there. And for Dick Cheney to talk about aluminum cylinders for centrifuges is the silliest thing that I've ever heard. It's the worst kind of material one could ever have for a centrifuge, because the fluoride would just chew the hell out of it, pardon my French, chemically. There was a lot of silliness, and I was disappointed in our government for not being more skeptical, because those of us who value our country, I think, object most of all for our families, our citizens being put in harm's way on a false premise.
And I never understood why he was given that intel knowing it was false. If he just wanted to go into Iraq for lack of a better word, let's say revenge purposes for 9/11, be honest with the American people.
I think that's possible. The reasons and complexities for the invasion may be greater than just a single motivation. You had his vice president, who was very hawkish, who felt the Gulf War I was inconclusive, that it damaged the credibility or enhanced the weaknesses of our armed forces, when actually it was perfectly conducted. It was entirely according to the U.S. Charter. If anything, it showed that the United States respected its obligations to restore the nation-state of Kuwait, to disable the Iraqi army, and then to withdraw. And it protected.
Because we are not we are not invaders. We should only go in to offer assistance and then leave.
Well, we certainly shouldn't invade in an unjustified way. If there is any evidence of a country developing a nuclear weapons system against us, Yvonne, and this is where one could agree with Bush's concerns, that if there were long-term plans and danger to the United States of nuclear missiles, that this country should be approached, should be warned, should be isolated, and should be on notice that they either stop and have consequences. This is exactly where we see North Korea today, and you would have found a counterpart for that at the time of the Iraq invasion. If we were to put down our foot on nuclear arms, we should have realized in honesty, or Bush should have played the card in North Korea, because that was the greatest danger then, and it remains the greatest danger now.
I could not agree with you more. That is one scary human being.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, he kills his own family.
It is a situation which one might call a true wild card, because the individual doesn't seem to be playing the way the big boys play. There's a lot of bluff and push and shove in people with the largest assembly of warheads, the largest weapons in here. But there is a rational plan to avoid using that because the end game is unsatisfactory. Total global thermonuclear war is annihilation of civilization. Everybody understands that, but Kim Jong-un.
and I don't know. Is he such a narcissistic sociopath that he thinks that once he annihilates everything, he and his cronies will still be left standing?
Well, it brings me back to my favorite cartoon, which was drawn by Gahan Wilson, who is quite a famous cartoonist. In his own style, he has a frame with a single soldier in biohazard gear and an automatic rifle trucking through the muck through slabs of gray-green clouds. And the caption underneath it is, "I think I won."
I like that. I do like that. You think? Oh, my word. And that is Kim Jong-un. I think I won. Oh, my word. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we are off the chain in a big way tonight. David, I want to ask you something before we run out of time because, like I said, even 1 hour, this is why you're coming back and 1 hour just doesn't do it. You may come back 4 and 5 times. You've become one of my favorite all-time guests. I never get tired of talking to you.
I'll give you my best Richard Nixon, Yvonne. You ask me no questions, I tell you no lies.
Okay, then. That works, too. And I remember Richard Nixon, believe it or not. I voted for him, sad to say. With your amazing academic background and your amazing journey, why did you shift gears and go into writing?
Well, I'd always wanted to write. It had been a passion, and for your authors out here, here's a story that works for them, I think, as an advisory. When I was at Cornell, I was doing some writing, not serious, but freshman level creative writing, and there was a professor there whose name will go unmentioned. I won't vilify him. I actually did use his name as one of my antagonists in the story, so that's my way of getting back. Who had said to me, "I don't care what you do, but whatever you do, never try to write."
No, he didn't.
Actually, I'll be fair to the man. What he saw in me at that stage, from his perspective, wasn't promising enough for him to endorse. And it's a bit like trying to evaluate a fully developed Olympic athlete from a fetus. You can't. There's no way to gauge whether one can go the distance, be that too early in the developmental process. I took it as a disappointment. I swallowed my pride and said, maybe not. But I would say to your authors out there, if this is in you, don't let anyone tell you you shouldn't do it or you can't do it, because you have to do it. It's not an option. And I offer this up because you're going to find in your writings that you've got a market segment, that you've got readers who like you and readers who don't care for you and readers who are indifferent. That's all part of life. One's mother or father might not like them, and that's something that you have to get over, get through as well.
And what you say is very true, and I've seen a lot of would-be writers give up because they got a bad review, or somebody said, well, you can't write, but that is that other person's perception of that particular writer. Just because one person says it doesn't make it true. I had real briefly, had some school teachers when I was in school who tried to stifle my writing because math was not my friend. That is why I admire you so much with chemistry, because math and chemistry go hand in hand, and both of those subjects eluded me for whatever reason, because my creativity was in writing. So, ladies and gentlemen, listen to David. This man knows exactly what he's talking about. Don't let anyone destroy your dream, because I'm going to tell you what this man did is absolutely amazing. I want you to tell the audience about the book that's written for the Japanese audience that just ran away in Japan. How did that happen?
It was a strange thing, and I don't. It's very subjective. These things are phenomenological, Yvonne. I don't know that one can explain what happens. You can correlate it with a particular society. This first book, Sight Unseen, was about a kidnapping of a young girl and the retrieval afterwards by her uncle, who was a Foley effects artist in Hollywood. That means he creates the sounds that go with the frames, because the sounds they get on the mics on the sets aren't enough like the sounds they want to produce the effect they have. He knew everything about what made a sound and what kind of sound it was, and therefore during the ransom calls, which at that time, at the time of the novel was 1990, and there were mostly landlines there, he could determine circles around where these places had. And there were 3 scenes in this and the sequel to that were pirated directly into the movie The Fugitive. So if you want to see them, look at the movie The Fugitive. You can see the FBI coming in on a building in Whiting. That was out of that. You could see the escape from Menard, which is the downstate penitentiary in Illinois. That was in the book. And you can see identification by Tommy Lee Jones, who got Academy Award for his role in there, of trying to find a rail system with a clickety-clack sound in it. And that was in the book too. So the terrible thing about being creative is if you're too good in parts of your book, those parts of your book will be enlisted in another plot, and you won't get credit.
And that's a shame.
Well,
because
it's sort of it's nice to be flattered. It's better to be paid.
I agree. But this particular book, it was Blind Rage, which was third.
The Blind Rage actually was picked up in Japan because the series was doing well in Japan. Previously, and this was in the late 80s to mid-90s, the book industry was doing well. The dollar was strong, and international deals were quite friendly. I found a lot of my money coming in from foreign rights, translation rights, Japanese particularly, but also German, French, Dutch, and Danish.
Let me ask you this. Are these books available in English? Are they even still in print, and can we get them?
I think that if you scour around, there are things. The Sight Unseen book is a book that was written in my earlier times. I wouldn't say it was necessarily representative of the way that I'm writing now. It's difficult, Yvonne, to define that. But I would suggest to you that my job as a writer is to be there when the words come. If the story has integrity and the writer has imagination, there's going to be a flow of the story into the writer where the writer is no longer present in the story, but it's the character's stage on which they play, and it is the imagination of the readers in which each version of this story occurs in in the privacy of their own feelings.
I love that. I love that analogy because it's so true. Because we as writers interpret a story one way as we're writing it, and then readers always interpret it another way, and it doesn't make it right or wrong either way.
The honest writer will look at some of these interpretations and be astonished by the breadth of the creative process, because our intentions may be only part of the transmission of the idea. We may be blind to what we're actually doing in some respects, because as the cases get better and better for alternative perspectives, one can say, yep, that's possible. Even though it wasn't intended, it's part of the grandeur of attempting to do something, because there's a little something in each of us that's receptive to larger forces, that has greater awarenesses, right?
That is very, very true. Now, in 2005,
yep,
I found this very interesting. And I think you and I touched on it briefly, that women have a hard time writing as men and men have a hard time writing as women. But you wrote as Grace Adler.
Yes, correct.
In 2005, it's called The Suicide Diary.
Yes.
Now, this is an absurd and ultimately hilarious dark satire. Briefly tell the folks about this book, because if I can find this book, I'm reading this book.
I think it's out there still. As a matter of fact, to the shame of our universe, they've broken the contractual rights and they actually have violated copyright. But they continue to sell it on Amazon.com. It's just nothing comes through to me. The story, the premise, in terms of the person it most affects, the person with least power within this situation, and the person most aggravated, and in the end most threatened by that, and at the same time most capable of bearing those threats, happens to be a very feisty little 17-year-old girl between college, who's very bright, who has a couple of parents who are a little bit nuts, both one and the other, a father who is an obsessive writer who goes to Arctic Canada to write his great American novel, and his wife, divorced, who is trying to play the debutante and the flirt back at home with new men. And this is one thing that women want to do after they get out of it, validate themselves by being attractive or being younger. But Grace had said, look, you guys had me. I'm getting into her head now. You guys had me. I'm a life. A person's life is a form of a gift. It's not something that you direct. It's something you give them. It's something you nurture them. And at a certain point, they're going to be on their own. Do the best by that. And Grace has this understandable feeling that this is due her, more so because she's a girl than she's a boy. And the world has opened to women more since the 70s and the feminist revolution than it was before. It's a matter of actualizing that, of finding yourself, of finding your wings, if you were. But she has put in a number of situations that are comic and absurd and hilarious, but at the same time credible. It's one of those experiences that is very like Dr. Strangelove. The odds are very great, but you find yourself sitting there and laughing at the idea of these people who are bungling toward total thermonuclear war.
I want to just read this real quick. It says, despite its chilling setting, I'm thinking Arctic Canada, the story is simmering with conflicts between father, daughter, nudist weapon dealer, Islamic terrorists, FBI agents, FedEx drivers, absentee mothers, mail-order Russian brides, Siberian shamans, UFO seekers, and polar bears. Ladies and gentlemen, it doesn't get any better than that. I'm getting. When I saw that, I had to read it 3 times and going, how do you blend all that into a story? I'm getting the book.
It's wonderful in that the more distant one gets from the requirements of being civilized, the more eccentric that the cast of characters can be. And so if you're in any place, whether it's Arctic Canada or Montana. You could only have Ted Kaczynski operating in Montana because in Montana everybody minds their own business and objects to any kind of surveillance. Nobody cared, and you can do your own thing. The problem was that Ted Kaczynski's thing wasn't exactly the best for everyone else.
Well, I'm gonna fast forward because I want to talk about Little Gods and Triple Jeopardy and Wall Street, but I want to fast forward in case we run out of town because you've got a recent novel out, and it is a modern Western thriller that picks up where Tony Hellerman left off.
Yeah.
Now, I've read Tony Hellerman, and he's fantastic. His books keep me in suspense to the end of the story. But the book is set in the dying rural town of Sanctuary, Montana. Sharpshooter pits its hero, half-crow Red Fawn Kravitz, against a serial killer who strikes from distance with a Sharps buffalo rifle, then seems just to melt in and out of the past. It is written in lyrical, equivocative language, as haunting, as beautiful as in any print. This is another book I've got to get because serial killers are my thing, and you're dealing with somebody that blends in and out of the past. Tell me about this book.
Well, the book is predicated, not to give too much away, but in a situation, small towns, you may know this. If you grew up in a big city, you won't have this appreciation if you had any experience in a small town.
Oh, yeah.
The one aspect that characterizes people in small towns is that they're a bit busybodies. They know everything about everything else, and they have this terrible aversion to strangers, like Thomas Hardy had in the book, in his short story, Three Strangers. Everyone who comes in is suspected of being something. You don't know them, you don't trust them. Yet, one of the problems with small towns is because of people being able to be isolated. People only imagine what it is that they know about people. They really don't know everything at all. They don't know any more secrets than the person is willing to give up for obvious reasons. It may make them vulnerable. It may make them disadvantaged in some way. The cast of characters carries the story. My student and novelist Peter Abrash called me. He said, after he got the draft, said, "Who wrote this story?" I said, "Peter, the story wrote itself. I was just there to put down the words."
You were just a facilitator.
And that's the way it is. This world belongs to these people. I don't have anything to say about who they are. I either accept them on their terms. And the worst form of writer's block that comes is not anything wrong with a writer and say, you don't understand. I'm not going to do that. And at that point, you don't have the story. It was never yours to begin with. It's a matter of giving it to the readers without getting in the damn way. And it is, as I said, in terms of the language, Peter felt the same thing, that it was poetic. A lot of people love Shakespeare, not because of the drama or the organization. They're all important, they're all human, but because he was a poet before he went in. And the flow, a person who doesn't understand English can go into a Shakespeare play in English and listen to the melody of the sounds, not comprehending anyone, and get the story out of the motion of the characters. But it's this sense of the language is a tremendous gift if we allow ourselves to be open to the music of the sounds of language, then our readers' ears are going to hear those sounds.
That is very true, and I've told everyone that comes to me and says, "Yvonne, I want to write. How do I write?" And I say, "Well, do you listen to the voices in your head?" And some of them look at me like I have more than one head. And I said, if there's not voices in your head telling you what to do, then maybe writing is not for you. Not because I don't think you can write, but the voices are the it's like you said, the voices are the story. They're the ones that drive the train.
I'm so glad that you said that, Yvonne. I'm delighted to hear you say that because I've listened to people recently as good as Don DeLillo who glories in allowing people to talk about the I of him. What do you do? What do you do? And he gets terribly personal about that. And it's got nothing to do with the stories. It's about him rather than about the process of the stories. That's a bad place for an author to be. Sit down with your work. I recommend, if you're working on a serious novel, don't read anything in fiction until you finish the first draft. Because if you're reading anything else in fiction, that voice is going to sneak in your expression, whether you know it or not, and become part of your voice.
You are absolutely right, David. And you know what's irritating is when I'm writing and I catch myself, well, I want the story to go this way. In my mind, I have a vision of how the story is going to play out. It took me 4 years to write a book because I was so stubborn that I wasn't listening to my characters. And when I finally said, okay, I give up. Here, use my fingers, you write the story. Once I let the me and the, as you say, the I go, the book wrote itself.
That's the
and
way
it makes
should
sense.
Be. That's the process, and it's the magic. It shouldn't be taken as an acquittal to bad writing. Say, oh, it's like Flip Wilson, the devil made me do it. It's a matter of being responsible for the form and allowing the content to come to you. One of the privileges of writing is to go back and revision and to allow the dialogue to be formed by the characters. And one way of doing this is to do a revision for each one of the characters, because they each have their own way of responding, of shutting up, of being silent, and honoring that voice by going back to each one of those characters as they speak, as if you were them, understanding them, and listening to the way they would express it, not the way you would express it for them. And in that way, the characters become priceless.
And it's not just the words; it's the inflection, the intonation, the tone.
Yes.
The
tense. There is a tremendous variant. I taught a course in dialogue, Georgetown, and one of the things that I said is, you will find, as you and I are doing quite civilly, that a conversation will start, and the pitch of the voice will generally be lower or more methodical and patient, like a newscaster. And as the disagreement escalates, the pitch of the voice increases, the length of the sentence shortens, until you eventually get two people who are talking over one another in the same space to one another. And subsequent to that, it becomes nonverbal. Well, before it becomes nonverbal, if an individual, one of your characters is born Spanish, they will revert to their native language and begin shrieking in their native language, because that's they're empowered better in that language than they are. And after that point, the crockery begins to fly. It's nonverbal.
And then the fun begins, as in War of the Roses. That's a perfect example.
It is indeed. It is indeed.
Well, before we run out of time, my friend, please tell our audience where you can be found, and because I'm sure they're going to want to friend you, they're going to want to buy your books, they're going to want to know more about you.
Yes, well, I'm actually have a webpage with the Authors Guild, a member of the Authors Guild in New York. And so if you look at me there, you can find it under Little Gods. I took up that tag because it's a very personal book. There is advice, and it's good advice, Yvonne, that we write for what we know. And the beauty of writing a story about a prep school in the Berkshires is that I'd been to one. And I knew the dynamics, and I knew the exchanges, and I knew the way that people behaved, and all I had to do was to find the ones that worked for my story. But the webpage that, my homepage, I think, is www.littlegods, one littlestringofletters.net. So littlegods.net is where I can be reached. They do have a webmail, email tab there for the Authors Guild, and everything will come through to me on that.
And you are on Facebook, because you are one of my friends on Facebook.
Yes, indeed, I am, and I am on Facebook. There's, in fact, I got an accusation the other day. A person came to me and said, "That's an old picture of you." I told them, "I'm an old guy. I'm entitled to an old picture."
Absolutely, and a handsome picture it is. Now, I know you gave some advice earlier in the program, but I always like to ask my guest, because I think it's so important. There's so many dreamers that are out there that sometimes let their dreams go awry for whatever reason. Maybe they don't feel they have the support, or they don't feel good enough. What would be your advice for a dreamer, whether it's a platform, a book, a piece of artwork, music, a business? What would be your advice for someone with a dream?
Give your dreams some time. Let's not talk about me. What about Flannery O'Connor, one of the greatest short story writers in American history? She had lupus. She had this phenomenal pain to deal with as she was writing. She forced herself to sit down every day at the typewriter, and she said, "If nothing comes, I'll at least have given it the time." She promised herself a half an hour a day sitting and staring at her Olivetti, and she found in the end it was more difficult to sit there and stare at the keys than it was to let her fingers begin to work with her ideas. But you've got to put away that interval of time. You've got to regard that as sacred, as inviolable.
And you have to work at it. You have to have to eat, sleep, drink, breathe, talk.
Yep.
It has to be everything that you do, and certainly dreams do sometimes take a detour for whatever reason. But that doesn't mean that you gave up on that dream. When you don't try, as I like to tell my folks, if you don't try, you've already failed. If you try, go ahead.
4:30 in the morning, 6:30 in the morning was when I used to write originally. The most creative time for putting down text for good ideas is just coming out of a dream trance, a dream state of mind in the morning. The best time for editing is when your mind has become analytical through the day and getting back and saying, okay, this is what I put down. How does it stand up to reading? And those are the two phases that I pursued, the two ways of writing. I would also say that you need to listen to your characters. This is a terrible thing to say because people ask you, have you read X, Y, and Z? And during the time I'm creating, I have not. If you listen, Richard Russo has come out with a book, a wonderful book called Everyone's Fool. I read it after I finished the last project and went to press. I wrote a short story, went down. The short story was sufficiently droll and well put together, but it wasn't me. It was Richard Russo. So any of your writers out there who want to be Hemingway or to be Faulkner or to be Ludlum, I would say read everything that they've done, and the creativity and the suggestibility of your mind is going to be overwhelmed by the voice of these people, and you will become them. But I'm not sure you want to be them, however good they are.
I want to be me because there's only one of me, and I'm kind of okay with that. I want to write in my own vein.
You should. Every one of your listeners who's a writer should, in fact. I cherish Cormac McCarthy. I think he's a phenomenal talent and has descriptive powers and insights beyond perhaps my capability. But we are differently oriented, and I won't let his excellence in his own way interfere with my modest efforts in my way.
Well, I'm going to tell you, David, your modest efforts are way up there, my friend. My fingers are itching now. If I didn't have this other hour with the two lovely ladies, Julia Clare and Virginia Johnson waiting in the wings, I'd be typing on my little computer, finding your books and downloading them to my Kindle, and I'd be reading them tonight.
You could give over 2 lovely ladies for an hour to me. I mean, that's always in there. It's, after all, politically fashionable these days, I guess. At least
that is true. That is true.
I'm sorry for that. I couldn't help myself.
But your work, your whole life's journey has brought you to this place. And ladies and gentlemen, for those of y'all that have just tuned in, waiting for the second hour, I've been interviewing David Hoof, who is an author, who is more than an author. This man is an amazing human being. He is coming back on the show on February the 16th because we didn't scratch half of the things that I wanted to talk about tonight with him. I can't begin to describe the brain and the mind of this amazing human being. If you have not yet read his work, please go look him up and read his works. Friend him on Facebook. Look up his website, because you'll be like me. You'll be biting at the chomp to go get his books. David, I know that you said that tomorrow you have to teach a class, so you can't sit in on the second hour. But if you want to sit in for a little while, feel free. Whenever you get ready to drop off, I'll understand. I'm going to thank you for the honor of coming and visiting with me. It's a pleasure and it's a privilege, and I feel so humbled that you agreed to this interview and you agreed to come back.
Oh, I'm very gracious of you, Yvonne, to have me, and I appreciate it a lot. And I'm looking forward to seeing. You'll probably get some calls, maybe cat calls. I don't know,
that'd be all right.
Get some.
That'll be fine.
And have a great evening and have a great interview. And I appreciate your energy and your enthusiasm and the privilege on my part of being with you.
And we will talk again on February the 16th, my friend, at 8 o'clock sharp.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
All right,
Thanks
my dear.
so much, Yvonne. Take care now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Ladies and gentlemen, that was author David Hoof. I am telling you, we did not scratch the surface with this man. But the 2 ladies that I have that are waiting patiently for me is Miss Julia Clare, and she has been a PA to some of the most amazing and beloved authors out there. She's also been in the book blogging game for some time, and she is also the owner of the Digital Dirty Girl book blog. Now, we're going to talk about that one. Julia has also helped various blogs on many different levels, and in her personal life, she is a mom to 2 crazy boys. She lives with her children, her longtime love, her super cute husky, Caine, and her pet boa, Dagger. In her spare time, she dives right into the next great read, watches scary movies, loves to rock out, and her love of the literary world has gone above and beyond, and you better believe that you can count on Miss Julia to get the word out. My other author that is sitting here with Miss Julia is Miss Virginia Johnson. Now, Miss Virginia is a mom to 2 beautiful kids, and she resides in the cold state of Minnesota. And any spare time that this lovely woman has is spent watching TV, reading, Facebooking, and spending time with her friends. Now, her love for reading and writing is a new concept to Virginia. Before the Twilight rave and a need to know the ending after Eclipse was released in theaters, Virginia preferred to watch the movie or convince a friend to read the book for and then give her a book review. We're going to discuss that one, too. Listen to them laugh. Y'all know this is off the chain, and the girls are already laughing. Needing to know the story of a random homeless man that she encountered on a freeway exit ramp was the only reason that Virginia began writing in the first place. Oh, yes, we are going to discuss that. Soulless Night spawned from the unknown story and a dare. Oh, this woman loves a dare. We got to dare her. From her friend. Virginia has expanded her love for books by planning and hosting the Tampa Indie Author Book Convention, and as a co-owner of the Indie Book Channel on YouTube, the opportunity to help others experience books and events if they otherwise couldn't has helped her to share her passion for the indie community. Welcome, ladies. I'm so glad y'all are here.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Well, you're quite welcome. Now, there's so much here, I don't even know where to start. I mean, homeless men under a bridge, boas named Dagger, dirty girl book like ladies. We got to talk. So let's start with Miss Julia. Let's talk about your history. How did you get from point A to here?
I started probably about a year or so ago. I was a stay-at-home mom and needed something to do. I always like to read, and so I started getting interested in the indie book community. And everything started from there. I started following some of my favorite authors and started PAing for them, and it led into starting a book blog, and from there turned into writing.
For the audience that doesn't know what a PA is, most of us in the book world do, but there may be some musicians or artists or entrepreneurs out there that doesn't know what a PA stands for. Delve into that a little bit.
Okay.
Where did you start?
PA is a personal assistant. So I'm a online personal assistant to some authors. That includes everything from sharing their work to making sure I keep their schedules, proofreading, keeping up with their takeovers and giving out giveaways, everything in the middle, including, 2 a.m. calls where the author is upset over something. We're just there to help with whatever they need.
2 a.m. calls. Somebody calls me at 2 a.m. in the morning, they better be dead. Okay.
Well, okay. Good thing about being online, you get authors from all over, and they're not always on your time schedule or in your time zone. So occasionally you get those early morning calls.
And then you want to throttle them because, well, most artists, and I can say this with tongue-in-cheek because I am one, most artists can be a little bit of drama queens when they want to. I know you ladies can attest to that on more than one level. Virginia, tell me your history, sweetheart. I mean, a homeless man under a freeway bridge. Okay, give me the backstory of your history of why you didn't read or watch movies and paid your friends to do it.
I did. Okay. Well, that all spawns. Oh God. Okay, let's just hope that there's teachers that aren't listening. Honestly, I hadn't read about.
You got a lot of background.
I think that's Julia. That's Julia. She's at a roller skating rink, I think.
Somebody's got a lot of background.
Okay. So my history. Okay, so I hated reading books. I hated reading. To the point that my mom read Fahrenheit 451 when I was in the 9th grade, and then I watched the movie, and then we talked about the difference between the book and the movie, and then I got an A. My best friend read Hamlet and Macbeth for me, Romeo and Juliet. I watched the movies. I didn't read. I got my friends to basically do it for me. Yeah, it's really bad. Anyway, I don't even know. Oh, then Twilight happened. I watched the movie, and I had to know somebody. I called my sister, and I apologized for making fun of her for her posters because I was all into it, really one of those crazy people. And she's like, well, there's a fourth one. And then I had to read the books. And after that, I read, somebody told me 50 Shades was a adult version of Twilight, which was a damn lie. Yeah. And then I kept reading. And a friend of mine gave me her Nook, and she's like, there, just read some stuff. And from there, took off, and then one day I stumbled upon an author and an event, and then followed them and met lots of great people, and then I started PAing for an author. So I'm also a PA, and I ended up doing some cover modeling, and in the end I was told one day you're going to be driving down the road and you're going to see something and think, I can write about that. And I didn't tell anybody but my friends, and I saw a homeless man on the side of the road, and I thought, you are way too hot to be homeless. Why are you homeless? I would totally take you home right now, but you're homeless. And I got home, and I thought about this poor guy, and I messaged my friends, and I'm like, why is he homeless? And my friends are like, I don't know. And one's like, he had PTSD, and another one's like, he's a billionaire just living the life. And another one gave me the story for solace. And I sat down during NaNoWriMo, which is coming up here in November, and I was in a group for it, and I ended up writing. And so it'll be a year ago now in November that I began writing. And I wrote solace.
And Julia, you and Virginia could probably both attest to this, that writing comes out of very strange things.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And our imagination works overtime when it does.
Yes. Yes. I know my books. I mean, I know, like, Julia has this book that we're releasing tomorrow. You know, and I'll let her tell you where that book came from, but I know from mine, Solace Nights came from a homeless man. Vindicate came from an anthology that I was in, and Revenge was written, and, you know, that came out of a conversation I was having with somebody, and I decided I'm going to write about this character. And I wrote it, and then Vindicate came from that. And it was one of those things, like, I just was talking to somebody, and I'm like, I'm going to write that. And I'll let her tell you where Seraphins came from, because this is also her baby. So,
well, before we get to Seraphins, I want to know about the Dirty Girl, Digital Dirty Girl blog.
It's a blog, and we showcase all types of indie books, all different genres. And the name really, like, my co-owner, Kimberly, and I were talking, and we were trying to find something that was different and something that was catchy. And we were playing with different words, and, you know, we were all digital, and Dirty Girl just kind of fit afterwards.
It lends to a lot of the imagination. Now,
it does, but it also draws a lot of interest and attention to it. So.
Yeah, it does, because I went and looked it up, and I said, okay, are my eyes going to burn out of my head? that was my first thought. Am I going to go blind for life when I read this?
Not from the blog, you won't.
Luckily, I didn't. It was okay. It worked out. Now, I want to know how you two hooked up.
That's a funny story, actually. We were both fans of the same writer, and one of her books was a favorite amongst both of us, and we both laid claim as our book boyfriend, the main character. And so I had seen Virginia at some takeovers for that, and I didn't like her because she was my competition. Until she came to me, and then she needed some help. And after that, her and I started talking.
And I was forgiven. You were willing to share this character?
We ended up sharing him, and she's honestly one of my best friends now. So it was definitely, love-hate relationship at first.
All because of a boyfriend.
Oh, my word. You two are not right. You do understand that, right? Y'all are not right in the head.
Oh, we know.
Oh, but we're perfect.
Oh, okay. As long as you understand that. Virginia, let's talk about the Tampa Indie Book Conference that you hold.
Yes. We are hosting I've been to a lot of book signings and a lot of book conventions nationwide. I've traveled quite a bit this year to some different ones, and another author and I were talking, and he had basically said, because I'm actually running it with Kyle Perkins, and we were talking about, that he wanted something different, something that wasn't going to be like every other book convention held in a hotel conference room. And, we talked about some of the things we could do that would be maybe more inspiring for authors to want to go to instead of sitting at a table in the middle of a room. And we ended up coming up with the Tampa Indie Tampa Indie Author Book Convention. And basically what that is it's being held in a more warehouse setting, which is actually really awesome. There is a website as well as a Facebook page for it. We've got everything from VIP passes, meet and greets. We have 2 different days of book signings, as well as an after party. And we're not charging all of the extras. I mean, if you buy the VIP pass, you get everything. It's open bar, as well as food and indie authors from all over the country, but we're holding it in Tampa.
And when is this convention?
It's July 14th through the 16th of next year. We are taking more authors. We do have room available, as well as VIP tickets are being sold now. It is going to be a little bit more of an exclusive type of setting because we want the authors and the readers to really connect. We don't want it to be, like a horse and pony show. We want this to be that you can come and talk to your author and have a conversation and hang out with them afterwards. Because, that's really what the reader wants. And authors want that too, unless they're just too full of themselves. Then they just want to sit behind their table and sell their books and be rude. And that's not what we want,
Sadly, I have run across some authors, and they are indie authors. And my conversation to them is, look, as indie authors, we have to work 100 times harder to produce half of the profit that the traditional authors do. And you don't want to be kicking your readers in the teeth.
No, that's the worst thing an indie author can do. And, I think my fans, my readers, my friends can tell you that I don't think there's a one of them out there that I've ever in a million years treated poorly because they're the only reason I write. That's it. They're the reason that I put a book out.
I write because if I don't, the voices in the head will drive me completely insane, and I'll be going and getting Julia's boa and wrapping it around my neck.
I write because my beta voices won't shut up.
Yeah, they never shut up. Even at night, they don't shut up. Well, let me ask you this, Virginia. If someone wanted to, A, sign up for the convention, or B, attend the convention, where would they go to look this up?
We do have the Tampa Indie Author Book Convention .wordpress.com, so there is a WordPress for it, as well as on Facebook. We do have a Facebook site, the Tampa Indie Author Book Convention on Facebook, so you can find it there as well. It's very easy to sign up. We have all the forums are located on both sites. If you go to either myself or Kyle Perkins, so I think it's kyleperkinsauthor.com or authorvirginiajohnson.com, we have links to that website on our own website.
Because I might sign up and hop over there. It depends on how my husband's doing. And maybe do a live remote.
I'd love to have you.
Guys. Wouldn't that be fun, do a live remote?
It would be really fun.
It could get interesting. Now, Miss Julia, tell me why y'all decided to write the book together.
We were doing an author event online, and it was really slow. One of the posts that were made was to write a story one sentence at a time, and her and I ended up writing back and forth, and at the end of it, we were like, wow, we need to write together. And then I found a picture that I really liked, and I sent it to her, and I was like, this is what we need to write our story about. We need to figure this out. And she said, okay.
So, let me, because I co-wrote with a friend of mine. We wrote a series, and we were in each other's heads, and it was an amazing adventure, because it was like we could feel each other through the characters that we were portraying. And for people that want to write like you and Virginia have written, and I and Andrea have written, explain the dynamic that it takes to be able. I'm getting way too much back noise.
Yeah.
You there?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm here.
Okay.
Julia's still there.
Okay, because the background noise was getting way too loud for me even to hear myself. Explain the dynamic of what it takes to co-author a story.
I think it really takes someone, you have to write in the same genre together. And luckily for us, I think we think a lot alike, and we like the same books, and it just kind of came easy for us. I know a lot of people have problems writing with other people, and I think it's just the way you interact outside of even writing with each other makes a big difference on how you're going to write together.
Would it be safe to say, Virginia, that that the two people that are writing with each other have to have a mutual respect for each other and a mutual understanding of how the other person thinks?
Absolutely. You have to, when you co-author or co-write a book, you have to have a lot of trust in that other person. And when I say that, I mean, I've seen co-writers that write and one of them just dreads it. You know, like, oh my God, I can't believe I signed up for this. I've had co-authors that are now tied to people that they wish they never would have stayed tied to because of a book. I think it's important that you know what you're getting yourself into when you co-write. I know that I'm co-writing 2 different books with 2 different co-writers. And you have to have a lot of trust in them that they're going to have the same story you are. And I know with Julia, you know, Seraphins was a blast. I mean, we started it without talking to each other. I think it was chapter 20 before we actually said, okay, how do we want to end this thing, and actually had to call each other.
I understand that.
You know, and the one that we're writing now, because, I mean, 2 days after we finished Seraphins, we started a new one. It was like, let's do this, and we were together in a hotel, and we're like, let's plan the prologue, and we had this plan, and you know, the other day I finished a chapter and sent it back to her, and I said, you know, where I'm going with this, and she's like, what did you think? And I said, well, something like this, and she's like, yep, I already wrote it. And you know, you have to have that connection. You have to know what the other person's thinking in order for it to work. And you know, another book I'm co-writing, it's Humanity's Arc, Kepler, and it's a sci-fi book. But, you know, with that one, I don't know anything about sci-fi. And I got, 10 or 12,000 words into it before I found out Kepler was a real planet.
Wow, I didn't know that either.
Right, and I'm writing this book about this storyline and this primitive nature of this planet, and I had no clue it was even a real planet. But he trusted that I would be able to pull that off. And, you know, that meant a lot to me, that he didn't have to really break it all down to me. He just said, write whatever is coming to your mind, what you think is going to happen. And then afterwards, he's like, it's a real planet.
But he didn't want to scare you with that before you were writing the book.
I think he thought I knew. But still, you know, it was one of those things that there was trust there. You know, I trusted that he was going to write his from his point of view, and I was going to write that character. And same thing with, Julia. We had two completely different characters, and I trusted, just like she trusted me, that we had the same vision. And I think that that's important.
Julia, do you find yourself getting into Virginia's head even when y'all are not actively co-writing? Do you all have conversations where one of you says, I was thinking about, and then before she finishes the sentence, you say, yeah, this?
Oh, absolutely. Her and I think a lot alike, and so we have conversations all the time like that, where she'll send something, and I'll be like, I was just looking at that, or ask my opinion, and it tends to be the same. I think the only difference we really have in opinion is if we're Team Jasper or Team Julian at the moment.
It's whichever character. It's whichever character is stronger at the moment too. I'm sure.
Yeah.
No, it's whichever one we own, and mine's better.
No. Jasper wins, so it's all right.
Okay, so do we have to put you two in separate corners now for timeout?
We do this frequently.
I want to go back before we get into the book, because I want people to have to wait to learn about the book. I want to go back to the PA thing for a minute, because people say, well, I want to be your PA, or I want to promote you. I want to do this, I want to do that. And I have a feeling they don't understand what it takes to be a PA. So, Julia, I'm going to start with you, because y'all put out some very definitive don'ts about being a PA. And
we've had
the number one rule is there's no poaching anything but eggs. Explain that.
We've had lots of people. We had heard lots of complaints with people saying, well, I share this author's work, and they friended me on Facebook, and we talk, so why can't I be a PA? Because I already do most of what they do. So we started talking and realized, a lot of people had no idea the amount of stuff that we actually do. And so we started writing some articles together. And the number one rule about not poaching anything but eggs comes from there's a lot of competition in the indie community, not only with authors trying to get their books out there and read, but amongst PAs as well. So there's different protocols. If you want to get in touch with an author, then you go to their PA first, and they'll usually handle it or put you in touch with the author. And we ran into a problem with some PAs skipping an author's PA and going directly to the author and offering their services to the author. So that was our first rule, is that you don't go around someone and try to steal their author from them. A PA and author usually have a really good connection with each other, they should work really well. So usually if you try to do that and you try to go behind their back and try to steal their author, it doesn't work. But it's still frustrating when you have a job to do and other things are being done on the side that you don't know about because somebody is trying to fill your spot.
See, and to me, that shows the lack of character and integrity in the person that is doing that, because if you have to resort to that, then what does that say about the kind of job you will do for that author?
Exactly, and that's why I said the relationship between a PA and an author is a really close-knit relationship. And so as long as you guys work well with each other, then nobody else has a chance of sliding in anyways. But it just shows you their character, and if they're going to do this to you, what does it mean that if someone else gets bigger, the next few months, that they're not going to leave you and try to go with this other author?
And that's a lack of loyalty. And there's two things that I require with people that are in my life, and one of them is loyalty. Because if you're not going to be loyal to me, you become a liability, and I don't have liability in my life. I cut it out of my life. I don't have time for it. You're either an asset or a liability, and if someone tries to do that to someone, they need to drop them like a bad habit, because they will double-cross them every time.
Yeah.
Virginia, the grass isn't always greener?
Well, I think that one, Julia wrote the first 5. I wrote the last 5. But the grass isn't always greener. I think that one, it links together, though, with the poaching part. That, it's jumping, author jumping. Oh, my God, there's nothing that drives me more crazy than author jumping. But, it isn't always greener. It kind of goes to that loyalty thing. And it isn't worth it. I know that for myself, I PA, and I would rather PA than write. Like, I love that job, and I take it very serious. And when I see PAs that don't take it serious or use it as a name, I'm not here to help you continue to screw authors over. Like, it's not worth it. Either you're going to help an author and get it done, or you're not. And if you're not, let them find somebody that'll help them.
Or let them do it themselves. And that brings up that brings up another point. You ladies like myself, I've been in this business for a long time now, and when I started in this business, I knew going in that I was going to have to publish my own work, market my own work, market myself, and do everything myself because there was nobody out there to do it with me or for me. But the thing that I found is the new authors that come out, the new indies, and the people that want to write, you know what is frightening? They don't know how to market themselves.
They don't.
No, not at all.
We get those calls from those people all of the time saying, how do you do it? Why, can you help me? Where do we go? What do I do next? Yes, we know.
And I give workshops on this, and what I tell people is, look, you cannot market your work until you market yourself. What is it about yourself that would draw somebody to read your work? I don't know. I'm going, oh, my God.
That's a
really?
big problem with the authors because they don't do their own events and they don't talk to their fans, and they rely a lot on their PAs to take care of that for them. So their PAs get lots of attention, and everybody knows they're doing good work, but they don't know anything about the author, and sales will suffer from that. Being that you're independent and you don't have somebody behind you, you've got to get out there and you have to be present with your fans, and you have to, talk with them and interact in order for them to like you and want to come back and finish reading your stuff.
And they don't get it. They don't understand because this girl, they'd come up to me and they said, I've written this book, now what do I do? Okay. Mm-hmm. What makes somebody want to read your book? Well, it's a good book. I wrote it. Honey, you and 10 million other writers. I understand it's a good book, but why do I want to read this book? What is it about, not the book, but you that draws me to want to purchase this book? And they look at me like I have 6 heads. I don't know, because they really don't believe in themselves. So if they don't believe in themselves, how can they believe in their work?
Exactly.
Okay, that's my sermon for the day, ladies.
We wrote that.
Feel free to use that anytime with your authors. And hence, this is why we have the show. Because y'all have listened to enough of my shows, I'm sure, that I don't jump right in and talk about the author's work. At the beginning of the show, I really don't care about their work. I want the audience to know the author. So I try to bring the author, the person, to the table and have this interaction and discussion, and then at the end talk about the work.
Mm-hmm.
Rule number 3, rise up and attack the day, not other people. Okay, who wants to jump on that one?
I'll let Julia take Julia can take the first 5.
Well, the big thing with that is when you've got fans or people that are close to an author and they go to basically the competition and they badmouth them and they tell people, not to like this person because of this and that. And it turns into like a middle school, this person said this and this person said that. So rather than tear everybody down, I mean, I know Virginia and I, we do our best to help everybody. We have people come to us all the time and ask, if they can have help with, various different things. And it's really, better to do that because it looks bad on you, too, when you're going and saying, this author's awful and don't read her stuff.
Oh, that's just tacky. That is no class at all. And
there's a lot of bullying and stuff, too, with them.
And there is no room. We have a hard enough time as indie authors getting out there without that type of mental stupidity. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, I said mental stupidity. I'm not calling the person stupid. I'm saying mental stupidity. It is difficult enough for indie authors to be out there with a good name without that kind of behavior. Just because I don't read a particular genre doesn't mean that it is bad writing. It means that is not my forte. I don't write a particular genre. I don't read a particular genre. But I would recommend that author to someone who did.
Exactly.
That just goes against the pale. Yeah, I can get on my high horse about this. But now, okay, Virginia, you said you did the last 5.
I did.
Number 8. Oh, now they're going to laugh. Now they're going to fall down laughing. Dick chasers? Okay, explain that one.
Don't be a dick chaser. Oh, this is wonderful. That's the game. Okay, dick chaser. Okay, what's a dick chaser? A dick chaser is to a PA or to an author or even to another reader. If you have a fan base and you're a male, for example, and, maybe you take a break because you're writing, and so you're not interacting as much or maybe as flirty, and a new male author hits the pavement. You'll notice the fan base switches, or the PAs switch. And suddenly you've got PAs that are now paying more attention to a male author, or readers that would rather sit in a fan group because some other guy with an abs pic is willing to flirt with you. Is it really all about, okay, if you want to be a middle-aged dick chaser, that's on you. But don't hang out with me if that's what you want to do. If you want if you want me to create a profile and flirt with you, I can do that. But don't be a dick chaser and then pretend to be my fan. That I guess is my problem. I have an issue with it, and a lot of authors do. I know male authors struggle. There are male authors out there right now that are struggling every day to sell books because another male author hits the pavement and isn't afraid to ask you what your favorite sexual position is. That's not why they should be there. You shouldn't want to have to tell them that you prefer doggy over reverse cowgirl. It is what. Are you sure you want me on this show?
Yes. This is why it's called Off the Chain, darling.
Well, then I'm perfect for you. Okay.
Absolutely.
Oh, my gosh. So, yes, dick chasers. I have a problem with dick chasers because I do PA for a male author, and he is flirty, and he is fun, and he truly believes in his art, and he writes really, really well. But if he takes a break or if he is really focused on his work, you notice these fans all of a sudden start to follow somebody else. And as a PA, that's my job, is to watch for that fan base to fade or to keep everybody active. And when they're not, and you're looking around going, seriously, you just dick chased? Like, I'm in that group to watch you. Like, that's the only reason I'm there, is because I'm actually watching how these people are interacting there. They know this. That's not a secret, but stop dictating.
But it's like Hollywood stars, though, ladies, because fans are fickle. They are only around.
But why do you have to be that? It's desperation.
Well, all right. Since we're being honest here, women in general don't have a whole lot of common sense sometimes. Because they can't see past the physical, and they don't pay attention to loyalty and art form. They just see this, as my friend says, hunka burning man, and that's all they see.
Right. And that's the point behind the dick chaser. Stop. Like, we know you're doing it. And to see that, I don't know. Oh, my God, I could go on for days on dick chasing. It's been a lot more obvious recently. There's a lot more male authors, which is wonderful because a lot of them are great authors. I've read their books. Many of them are just truly nice people. But are you really a fan? And the problem, and I'm going to say that because if you're in a fan group and you're truly a fan of that author, buy their book.
Exactly.
Don't be there for the next dick pic. It's not going to come. Don't walk into my group and post a picture of your vag. I don't want to see it, nor does the author I'm working for.
They want to see the product. They want to see the book sold.
Right. Like, if you're really a fan, be a fan. That's my theory. I mean, I want you to be a fan. I would rather have 15 loyal fans that love my work and love me than 300 that are waiting for me to flirt with them or in hopes that I'm going to take them home and marry them. You know what I mean? Like, that's my problem. That's the dick chaser.
one of my favorite all-time traditional authors, and I fell into his work quite by accident. And I wait and wait because he only puts out one book a year. But it is so worth the wait. And I am on his fan page, and I keep up with him because his name is Tim Dorsey. And if you've never read Tim Dorsey, you should. The man is absolutely hysterically funny. He has his main character is a serial killer named Serge Storm. And his sidekick is Colt. But they only kill bad people. And all of the storylines takes place here in Florida, and Tim goes to these different out-of-the-way places to research his storylines. The man is a fantastically hilarious author, and I can't wait for the next book to come out. And if he doesn't put a book out for 2 years, that's okay. I'll wait because I'm that loyal as a reader to his work. And that's
but you're an actual fan of his work and not a fan of him.
Yes.
Right.
And a lot of the girls that we meet, they've never read the author's book before. They're there just because they like the guy. And we've noticed even when the guy tries to talk about his books, the conversations turn back to wanting to see him or, show us pictures with no shirts on and things like that. So that's the difference between a fan and somebody that's just there because it's a guy.
That is immaturity, stupidity, and a liability.
But sometimes you do get that author that recognizes that, because that's the problem. Is there's authors out there like male authors, and the reason I'm using male authors, I mean female authors have the same problem, but we don't have as many male readers. So I'm talking the male authors because both Julie and I do PA for male authors. So we see these things. And the problem is that a lot of authors don't recognize that that's the problem. They think it's a fan. And until a lot of them do recognize it, and they're like, wow, are these really fans? And why am I writing? And unfortunately, these dick chasers can not only be a burden to real fans, but they can hurt an author.
Very badly.
Because it makes them question, why are they writing?
And the thing is, sadly, or not sadly, but it is a fact of life, most men have very fragile egos anyway and depend on women to build them up. And And authors or artists in general do have, and I speak from experience, we have fragile egos. We're always second-guessing ourselves. And so it's a very fine line. Well, do I want to get rid of them because they're a liability, or do I want to let them hang on just to keep stroking this ego? My thought process would be cut the dead wood and let's get some true fans in there. But that's
all depends. I mean, every author is different and every fan is different. So
that is true.
Yeah.
Now,
so I get it.
The last one, be professional. Now, the three of us know what professionalism is because we've been at this for a long time. I've been at it since I was 5 years old when I started working for my father. But for the audience, explain how to be a professional.
I think what you need to understand as a PA is that you are a direct reflection of your author. Okay? So if I wanted to go on Facebook and I wanted to tell everybody to screw off, I'm not just telling my friends or my family that. I'm telling every friend that I have or every fan that my author has to screw off. I can make my author look bad without even talking books. I can go into a group or a setting, even in a book signing, and be the most unprofessional person on the planet. And you know what they're going to say? That's so-and-so's PA. I know my name is Virginia Johnson. I write books under Virginia Johnson, but you'd be amazed at how many people call me Kyle's PA.
Exactly.
Just like Julia is Kim's PA. And if our PAs, or if I'm not professional, how can I represent an author that wants to be professional? And too many people out there don't care about the reputation of their author or their own personal view or how they look. That's a problem. And that's where you have to be professional. You cannot always be the fun, slutty one on Facebook. You can't. And I wouldn't want that in a PA for myself. I want somebody who has good grammar. I want somebody who knows where to put a comma.
Now, that is, unless you're a PA for a porn star or somebody that writes explicit porn, that might work.
Well, I write erotica, and yet I don't want.
I'm not. No, you.
I know what
write
you're talking
a lot.
about.
I'm talking about porn.
Porn. Okay, fine. You know what? I probably want a slutty guy, sure, but it's in the book world. There are very few people that really write that, and I know in my fan base or in my friend base, like peer base, there are PAs out there that aren't professional, and it's hard for Julia and I to sit back and go, I dedicate 20 hours a day to PAing. We sleep 4 hours a night. We are on it 24/7. You need me, I'm here for you. And then you get some PAs that are just like, oh, I really don't care. Or you need something, I'll get to it eventually. I'm too busy telling my ex-boyfriend's brother's mom's dog to fuck off. I mean, that's the problem.
All right,
sorry.
Now,
Did I say that?
No. That's why we call it Off the Chain, ladies, because this radio show, one can be real. There are no lies. There is no innuendos. There are no, it could mean this or that. It means this. When we say it, that's why it's off the chain, because I believe in total honesty with my fan base and with my listeners. That's why they tune in. Julia, let's get down to the good stuff now. Let's tell the audience a little bit about the book.
Seraphins is an erotic horror. It is about a motel that's named Seraphins, and I guess the closest thing you could compare it to is a brothel. But instead of just coming there to have sex with someone on your lunch break, it's somewhere that you can live out your darkest fantasies. When they answer the phone, they ask, what is your desire? because you can go there and you can get away with pretty much everything. And the woman, Sarah Finn, that owns the motel, she's got two pets, as she calls them, Jasper and Ivy. And she is there to look over and make sure everything runs smoothly, but she also wants to keep them with her. And she has some problems with Ivy and trying to make sure that she's on the same wavelength and that she does, and that she's okay with everything that happens in the motel. So it's about the three of them and the different rooms that you can choose and different things that go on in those rooms. And what they're not expecting is a guy to call in and make a reservation that interrupts the balance between the three of them and starts to kind of pull Ivy in a different direction.
See, and I don't read erotica, but this is already, because it's different, it's already got my interest piqued. I might have to read it just because y'all made it sound interesting.
You definitely should. It's not something that I've read before personally. We try to make it, different, and we try to make sure that it wasn't something that you were like, oh, I know what's going to happen next. It definitely has lots of twists and turns, and I think keeps you guessing until the end of it.
Well, I'm going to look it up, and I'm probably going to buy it and read it just because now the inquiring minds want to know things going on here. Mm-hmm. We are getting down to the last 14 minutes, and since I have both of you on, Julia, you go first. Tell me where you can be found, and then Virginia, when she gets done, you tell me where you can be found, and then I have a question that I always ask my guest towards the end of the program. So, Julia, you go first. Where can you be found?
I'm all over Facebook. It just depends on what you need. Facebook.com/author Julia Clare. If you need design work, I have a page. It's Star and Skull Graphics, and I do teasers and trailers and book covers, just about everything with that. And then, of course, we've got the blog, which is Facebook.com/Digital Dirty Girl Book Blog. I also am on Amazon, and you can follow me there. It's under author Julia Clare as well.
All right, Miss Virginia, your turn.
Okay. Mine is pretty simple. If you look at all the Facebook.com splashes, mine's author Virginia Johnson on Facebook, as well as authorvirginiajohnson.com is my website and blog. You can also find me, like we said, the Tampa Indie Author Book Convention, as well as the Indie Book Channel on Facebook, as well as on YouTube. So you can find me on any of those sites pretty easily. Twitter, Instagram, just look me up. You can't miss me. But, yeah, that's where you find me.
All right, now, the question, and I think y'all heard me asking David this same question towards the end of the show. Virginia, if someone comes to you and they say, Virginia, I've got a dream, I've got a passion, I've got a platform, but I don't have any time, I don't have this, I don't have that, what are you going to tell them?
Well, that's where my devil's advocate comes in. One, if you have time and passion, or you don't have time, but if you have a passion, you have time. You just need to make it, and you need to make it happen. And if you really have a passion, you're going to be able to learn to accept that and do it. You make time. My biggest thing is if you want it that bad, you need to get it. And I'll help you. I'll do everything I can to help you achieve that goal. But if you aren't willing to do the work, you'll never achieve it. And you need to just go and get it.
Miss Julia, what is your advice to someone with a dream?
To follow it. There's lots of different things that can happen that might want to deter you, and you can't let it stop you. If it's really something that you're passionate about and you want to do it, then there are ways, and all you need to do is keep trying at it. I never imagined a year ago that I would be having a book released tomorrow, or that I would have a publisher publish anything of mine. And I've had short story published in anthology. I've had poetry published. So it's just sticking with it and making sure that you don't let anybody tell you no.
Do you ladies agree that if someone has this passion or this dream and they don't at least try to go after it, that they've already failed?
Yep.
Oh, absolutely.
That you have failed.
And even if they go after it and for whatever reason the dream is not fulfilled, do you also agree that they succeeded?
Yep.
Yeah, they went for it. They, did what they wanted to do, and they did the best that they could with it, even if it wasn't, they're not the next Stephen King or, something like that. They still went for it, and that's a lot to be said for it, because so many people just give up on dreams and they don't even attempt them, but actually putting forth the effort to do it is a big accomplishment.
Because, and y'all will also agree, I'm sure, that putting forth that effort is work. It is a lot of work. It is a lot of time. And if we make excuses for the things that we want to do but we don't do them, who do we cheat?
Ourselves.
Absolutely. And we cheat others, too, because what we've done is we wasted our talent. And in wasting our talent, do you both also agree that when we waste that talent that we cheat someone else out of what we could offer them?
Absolutely. And there's others out there that'll try and take that from you, too. So you have to, know better.
And I have a mantra, and my mantra is no one can steal your dream without your permission.
Yep.
Now, before we close, we've got a few minutes, but before I forget, I want you ladies to come back, because there's so much more that we can talk about. We can go delve into the PA thing and why it's important to have someone that knows what they're doing. We can talk about the event over in Tampa. So why don't I bring y'all back sometime in March, say on the 15th of March. That'll be right before the event, and we'll do maybe an hour-and-a-half show.
Sounds good.
Oh, that'd be great.
Write that down, Julia. She's also my PA.
Oh, my Lord.
Yes,
and
I'll write it down.
Great.
All right. I have put it in my calendar. Ladies and gentlemen, these two lovely ladies will be and I'm sure they'll have more work out by the time they come back in March. They're going to come back on March the 15th at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Now, we've got about 5 minutes left. So, Claire, I'll start with you. What words of wisdom do you want to leave our listening audience tonight?
Just to go for it. Do what you want and not worry about what others are going to say about it. Do it your own way. There's going to be people that are going to say things about you and they're going to put you down, but then you're going to have that one person that stands behind you the whole time and encourages you, and that means so much more than anybody who doesn't believe in you.
Miss Virginia, what pearls of wisdom do you want to leave with our listeners?
The same thing Julia said. Surround yourself with the right people. It's not about, having the most friends or being the most popular. You're going to get criticism and you're going to be bullied. And in the indie world, it's everywhere. And you need to know when enough's enough. I guess my words of wisdom would be something that somebody had told to me, which was, are you going to let somebody else control your destiny? If they're able to anger you or upset you, they have control over you. And I think your biggest thing, especially in the indie world as an author, is to not let that happen and have a strong group of people. And don't make it a large group. I mean, 2 or 3 people in your life can make you or break you, and they're the ones that are going to, find those people and don't lose them, because they're the ones you can trust in this world that aren't going to toss you to the side. The more you do, the better you're going to be.
And if we stumble and fall, if we stay down on the ground, we accomplish nothing. But if we pick ourselves up and pull up our big girl and big boy panties and march on, we will reach our goal, because we do have control of our destiny. Is that a correct statement?
Yes.
Absolutely. You are the one in control of your destiny.
Yes, we are, and I love being in control of my destiny. I'm going to tell you, ladies, something right now. It's the most fun I've ever had in my entire life. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have, for whatever reason, just joined me at the end of this show, the guests tonight on the 9 o'clock hour are Miss Julia Clare and Virginia Johnson. They are both authors, and they are also both personal assistants in the indie author world, and they have traveled a road that, I tell you, they got a lot more guts than I do, because I don't like dealing with people that well. But that being said, kudos to them. God love them. And I'm going to bring these ladies back March the 15th, because we didn't touch half the stuff I wanted to talk about. Their book, Seraphim, is being released today. Is that correct?
Tomorrow.
You've got to check out Seraphim. I'm going to check it out. And at the 8 o'clock hour, my guest was author David Hoof, who I will be bringing back in February. These 2 hours, ladies, have been magnificent, absolutely off the chain, as always. If someone wanted to get a PA, should they shop, real quick, should they shop around for someone that is like-minded with them, or just delve in there and maybe pick somebody that's opposite?
No, I think the best PAs come from the biggest fans, and someone that reads your work and loves your work are going to do so much more for you than somebody that's just looking at it as a job.
Right, you need someone dedicated to you.
That is very, and I agree, because if they're not dedicated to you, the author, or if they weren't dedicated to you in your work, they cannot be dedicated to you, the author. It's like an editor. It's like an agent pushing a book to one of the big 6. They only read and push what they enjoy. And
exactly.
Right. Sadly, there was, as a PA, but as a PA, you need to, as an author, I didn't realize it at first, and so I'll call this one out really quick. The author I worked for was pretty adamant that I was exclusive, and I didn't understand at first why I shouldn't work for more than one author. And in the 9 months that I have been doing it, it was probably the best thing he'd ever done for me, because there's never a question as to who I'm supporting or what I'm doing. And I think with an author, you're looking for a PA, you need somebody that you can count on 100%, 24 hours. They're not going to be out helping somebody else when you have a release. They're not going to be out promoting somebody else when you need something done. And you need to make sure you find that person that's willing to be there for you.
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. We are the voice is fixing to attack us and tell us that we're running out of time. Tomorrow night, my guest will be author Leanne Murphy at the 8 o'clock hour, and at the 9 o'clock hour, C.J. Plain, the music god. He will be talking about his new radio station where this show will be syndicated. Julia and Virginia, thank you both so much for the privilege of coming on this show and having such a good time with me on Off the Chain.
Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you. It was a pleasure.
So, and y'all hang around for a few minutes, because when she counts us down and the show goes dark, we'll still be able to talk for a minute or two, and then it'll show up in archives. But ladies and gentlemen, do join me tomorrow night, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on Off the Chain with me, your host, Yvonne Mason. And as y'all have seen tonight, we are always off the chain here. You don't ever know what's going to be said or how it's going to be said or what's going to go on. Anything can happen. So tell your friends. And if you've got a platform, a book, music, piece of artwork, a job, a business, you want to be on the show, contact me. And until tomorrow night, I will say this is Off the Chain. Yvonne Mason, good night. Okay, ladies, the show is now over, but anything we talk about now will be in archives. But what I wanted to let y'all know is this show, once it's archived, goes into iTunes. Then it goes over to Stitcher, which is played on Sirius Radio in your vehicle. I will upload it on Mixcloud, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Podcast, and Podomatic. And when I upload it on Spreaker, it will go to TuneIn Radio, and it will also go to YouTube. Now, that being said, all of those podcasts, including this archive, is downloadable. So you can download this show, and please use it in your business. Put it on your website.
Oh, absolutely.
Put it on your, yeah. This is my gift to y'all. Because you're welcome. So many people have been good to me through the years and have helped me that I am only as successful as I will allow other people to be, and I want y'all to be super, super successful.
Thank you.
So with that, I'm going to get off from here and go start getting the show into archives so we can download it. And when I put it up on all the other podcasts, I'll put it up on my Facebook page, and I will tag y'all in it. And then you can go and share it with everybody, put it on your blog page, do whatever you want, download it, put it on your phones. And spread the word and get some business, ladies.
Sure will.
Well, thank you.
And thank y'all again. I loved it. It was absolutely hysterical. Can't wait for you to come back. And we'll talk later.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
When you don't go to Geico.com, car insurance can be hard. Like early 90s heavy metal hard.
I'm yelling and screaming, and I'm loud. Roar!
Geico makes it easy. You can review and update your policy or report a claim on Geico.com or the Geico mobile app. Because shouldn't we all have a little less stress in our lives?
I'm not even upset about anything.
When I listen to Audible, I'm not flying to my 3rd sales meeting this month. I'm on a romantic date with my vampire boyfriend, Pierre. That pale skin, those dark, mysterious eyes, and those pointy teeth. Take me away, Pierre!
Ma'am?
I want to become queen of the night.
Ma'am, something to drink?
Water, please.
Go to audible.com/start trial, and your first download is free. Audible, stories that surround you.